Hello, welcome to Dungeon Dwellers Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. On night 3 of Vampire Week, we're reviewing the 1997 vampire film Vampire Journals, which is directed by Ted Nicolaou, if that's how you pronounce his name, who directed the Subspecies movies, which is a sequel. This is actually a spin-off of. And this is a Full Moon Pictures film, and it's supposed to be rated R. I watched an edited version of the film where they took out like the nudity, and the version I watched is the Full Moon Fright Night, the Full Moon Fright Night, which is like horror host show where William Shatner hosts the film, right? And there's like little skits in between the film, and like in the end of the movie, when the movie ends, he interviews like Roger Corman for some random reason, right? So I cheated a bit when I watched this movie, right? Because I watched the version with William Shatner, which you can watch that version on Tubi, and you can watch the regular version, which has all the titties, right? If you want to watch that. So this movie, I gotta say, the description of the movie really, really intrigued me because it sounded very much like it sounded like very Vampire the Masquerade, like sounding description, and I'm not a fan of Vampire the Masquerade for because I could never get the fucking games to work on my shitty computer. But I watch Let's Plays. I'm intrigued by it, right? So I watched the film, and boy, well, the thing about Full Moon Pictures movies is that they're known for their great posters, and they're wild and crazy genre films, but the problem with their movies is they're very low budget. So there's not, even though the plot of the film sounds like it would have a lot of action, which the plot of the movie is about this avenging vampire Zachary who killed his master and is wields a magic vampire slaying sword, goes around Europe killing vampires, right? Trying to wipe out all the vampires from his bloodline, right? So it sounds very like Vampire the Masquerade with the vampire clans and whatnot. So he's sworn an eternal vow of vengeance to wipe out every vampire in his bloodline, right? So one night he's tracking a master vampire. He follows this master vampire into this symphony, right? They say the movie is in Eastern Europe, but they don't really specify what country. Which apparently, according to William Shatner, the film was shot in Transylvania. I wouldn't know, but like that's what William Shatner said. And what happens? He tracks this master vampire called Ash, who's played by Jonathon Morris, and Jonathon Morris, who's like some kind of British TV host, and like Zachary's played by David Gunn, Sophia is Kirsten Cerre, and at this symphony, there's this beautiful young American woman known as Sophia, who's playing the piano, and Ash is intrigued by her beauty, even though at best she's like a 6 out of 10. Right, she's a very homely girl, right? So Zachary follows them, and normally his plan of attack is to kill the vampire while it's the master vampire while it's feeding. That's when they're most vulnerable, but he in a moment of weakness he decides to step in before she gets bitten, because he doesn't want her to turn into a vampire, right? So he saves her and warns her, hey, This isn't America. You gotta be. This is Eastern Europe, baby. You gotta be careful, right? Don't go out at night. Lock your doors and stuff like that. And she completely ignores him, right? She gets like an offer from Ash, who him and his coven of vampires live underground this nightclub called Club Muse, which looks like a very looks like a fucking castle or some shit, right? And the owner of the nightclub works for Ash, who's like a human female. Goes to Sophia's and offers her like $1,000 to play at her club, right? Which, wow, they bought her life cheaply. So what ends up happening is she plays at the club and immediately gets captured by Jonathon Morris after she plays. He literally picks her up and takes her to his bedroom to feed on her, and it's very grapey. It was very funny, right? So like a lot of the movie is just like the vampires just hanging out, and being like melodramatic, right, at their vampire club. One of the vampires, who's named as Anton, is supposed to has been hiding money from Ash, who Ash gives the vampire gift of immortality to people who give them to wealthy people and people of power in exchange for half their worldly possessions or half their wealth, right? He's been hiding some of it, right? So he kills him, and Zachary tries to go and save Sophia, but gets cucked by the human owner, because there's the vampire rule that they can only enter residences if they're been invited in, and he gets she tells him, "You're not welcome here," and he immediately has no choice but to fuck off, right? So he gets invited back, right? And there's supposed to be this prophecy that the vampire slayer is gonna kill the master vampire, right? So Zachary has this interaction with Ash, where they threaten each other. He pulls his sword out. In one swift motion, Ash disarms him, and so tells him, "Hey, this sword used to belong to me. It's mine now." And Zach is like, "I'll give you the sword in exchange for Sophia's life," because now, even though he has this internal vow of vengeance against vampires of his bloodline, he's willing to trade it all just to save this one human girl, right? And Zachary's like, "Fuck you! I'm keeping this sword and I'm keeping the girl, but I'll give you safe passage for one night. You can feed on one of the whores I got, and then you can see Sophia." So what ends up happening is he ends up succumbing to feeding on one of the fang bangers, as they say on True Blood, right? One of the female sluts there, and and Ash completely fucks him over, takes Sophia, and Sophia sees Zachary feeding on the girl, right? Feeding on the girl. So what ends up happening is you get this very lukewarm, lukewarm climax where where Ash goes to turn Sophia into a vampire. The human woman who owns the place decides to betray Ash, because he's killing all these people at their club and is bringing unwanted attention. So she immediately betrays him to Zach, right? And while Ash is feeding on Sophia, he's able to, he tries to kill Ash, but ends up just injuring him, right? And even though they established that Ash is 100 times stronger than Zachary, because he's a master vampire, right? And he's lived for like a long ass time. It's implied that he's lived around at least 700 years, and Ash has only been around like maybe like 200 or 300. Right? Runs away like a girl. Tries to get one of the jealous vampire babes to like kill Zach for him. She gets one-shotted pretty much, and Ash runs away and ends up getting like, you know, and like Dawn's approaching. Ash runs away. Zachary hits him and he falls to his death and gets burned by the sun, and then the movie ends. So, sorry I spoiled the whole movie, but it's like, what the fuck, man? This movie was pretty bad. It was pretty. One, the makeup effects weren't that great. It's some of the lines in the movie is comical. You have this one gay vampire called Dominic, man, who's always asking for candles. Who's like, Master, Master, I accidentally killed my consort. What do I do? Who's like stupid shit like that. He's like, Dominic, we'll take care of it. Fuck. He gets killed like he sees Zach and he's like, ooh, who's this young man? And like Zach just goes up to him. He had his sword his magic sword taken from him. But he's like, I don't fucking need my magic sword for this guy. Just spins his head around. Doesn't even bother to rip it off. Man, this movie is so bad it's kind of good, but the problem is it's very boring at times. Though I thought the music was good, and aesthetically it's a pretty cool movie. I would say this is as vampire movies go, this is bad. But you know what? If you're a Vampire the Masquerade fan, you probably would find some enjoyment in this, the same way like D&D fans find enjoyment in the terrible Dungeons and Dragons movies. Because God knows I did, right? So yeah, if I were to give this movie a rating, I would say 5 out of 10. If you want to see like the version with titties, do not watch the one with William Shatner. But if you want like more of a comic, like a comedic theatrical experience, watch the Full Moon Fright Night with William Shatner. Some of the jokes he had were pretty funny, man, I gotta say. So yeah, that's it for this review, guys. Tomorrow, what are we going to review? Because I think we'll fuck it. We'll get to it and review the David Lynch lesbian vampire movie. What was it called again? I've totally forgot. Let me double check. I have it here. No, I don't have it here. Oh, whatever. I'll put it in the description, right? So that's it for this review piece.